Digitel is one of the leading companies for live streaming events, running corporate virtual events, or managed webinars. If you're looking to reach worldwide markets or generate revenue from adding a virtual component to your meetings and conferences, leverage Digitel's 33 years of experience in creating flawless online events. For more information, go to digitellinc.com or email them at contactus@digitel.com.
Are you a follower?
9, 8,
Okay, so we're gonna do the ad.
Welcome to GatherGeeks, a podcast by BizBash, the place where people passionate about meetings and events come together. Here are your hosts, BizBash CEO David Adler and Editor-in-Chief Beth Kormanik.
Welcome to GatherGeeks. Hi, David.
Hey, Beth. How are you today? Another edition. Here we go.
Today, our guest is Shai Tertner. He is founder and CEO of Shiraz Creative. The firm is based in Miami with offices in New York, LA, London, and Mexico City, and they execute events all around the world for clients like Google, Moët Hennessy, Microsoft, Dolce & Gabbana, Crate & Barrel, MAC Cosmetics, and more. We've long covered his work at BizBash and named him a BizBash Innovator in 2012, and he landed a spot on our top event designers in 2017. His business has evolved, most recently with a name change from Shiraz Events to Shiraz Creative. It's another milestone for a firm that started as a catering and model staffing business and grew into a full-service agency for production, design, experiential, and weddings. David, what I want to ask you before we listen to this interview is what people should listen for in the conversation.
Well, I think that he's really about the evolution of the industry. I mean, this industry has really grown up. And while he's Israeli, it is the American dream, kind of, in terms of how he has pivoted and kept to his standards and had a point of view in everything that he does in terms of events. And he's taken all aspects of it, even how he started, the story of how he started and how he was awestruck by meeting these celebrities, but then realized that they need his help.
Right. So Shai will share his perspective on how you edit your ideas, honing a critical creative eye, and for all of our event entrepreneurs out there, how to build a business into a global enterprise. Let's take a listen. Welcome to GatherGeeks.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're excited to have you here, and we're in for a conversation about events globally, about building your own events business, and some really great examples along the way. But to get started, why don't you just give us a quick origin story? How did you get involved in this industry?
Sure. I was born in Israel. When I was 23, I moved to New York. My path was going to medical school. I was supposed to go to medical school in Milan. I got accepted, and there was a detour, and I ended up for a summer vacation in New York City. And then I thought to myself, you've never explored your creative side. And maybe this is the time. So I went to FIT, fashion design, for a few semesters. A friend of mine asked me to help him open a catering with model staffing services. And so I did. He decided that it wasn't for him. So after 3 weeks, I had the company for myself and I developed it. Luckily, I had a great network that I wasn't even aware of its strength. And for example, my first event, I got an address and I went to this building, beautiful building on Lafayette, and the doorman let me in and I knocked on the door and Iman opened the door for me. And that was a dinner party that I was supposed to do for her and David Bowie. So those are some of the
So you didn't even know it was them?
No, they gave me a fake name. Yes, they gave me a fake name, and it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. And next thing I know, I'm in Bergdorf and Goodman.
What about that experience that was so amazing? Let's look at what you were 23?
Yes.
What was that impression that you got when you looked in that room and you were participating?
A kid from Israel, from a small town outside of Tel Aviv. I grew up on David Bowie's music. I knew who Iman was. I knew who the other guests were. And I'm there orchestrating this dinner. I felt so privileged. And the artwork, I just saw a movie and I knew that the artwork was included in that film. And so everything came together and I felt this blow of energy and really privileged. And I knew that that's what I'm supposed to be doing. It felt right.
And so from that business that after 3 weeks, you found yourself running. How did that evolve?
So for a few years, I was a caterer, providing model staffing services. And then I had this opportunity with the American Ballet Theater. They reached out to me to design one of their galas. And I've never done that before, but I can't say that.
But why did they reach out? What did you must have given something off that made them see that DNA in you.
I did an event in the Hamptons, and they saw pictures. It was one of their friends, and so they reached out to me. The theme of their event was Romeo and Juliet, and I just put together a presentation, and they loved it, and we went for it.
What did it look like in the room that something happened in that room? I'm trying to dig deep here.
I just brought that romance. I think coming from Israel, I brought a few details that maybe were new to them, especially to the society circle that go to galas every week. I brought a few details that were a little bit foreign to them, but still unique, romantic, outside of the box. For example, Jeff Latham, I hope I'm saying his name correct. So he's using his signature is now the arrangement tilted on the side of the vase. I did it then. So that was something unique back then. We're talking, 17 years back. So yeah, so some details were very unique. The event was beautiful, the lighting. I somehow, I don't know how, divine inspiration, not having such knowledge in lighting, but I knew what a show should look like. I knew what a room should look like, and what the way people look great in lighting. What is that balance? I didn't like too much color in lighting. I just like that candlelit look, and that always was my signature in giving that great glow, so everyone looks great in pictures, and that was part of it, and it all came together beautifully. It was a successful event. We did it for 6 years.
So is that a through line? Lighting? Is lighting something that you're crazy about?
I definitely think that it's one of the strongest elements that I bring in, aside from everything else. But when I look at a room, I look at the architectural details. I look at how do I bring all my design element together, and how it ties in with the lighting. After all, it's a whole umbrella of elements that come together to create a beautiful environment and for people to look great. They want to see pictures afterwards, and they don't want to have green lighting on their face. They want to be glowing and gorgeous and show those gowns out, and that's what we provided.
So that's your entree into nonprofit galas and
event design.
Mm-hmm. And then how did you branch that out? Because now your clients include, everyone. You do a lot of big corporate brands. You're working globally. How did that transition happen?
Well, everything takes time. However, we got some great opportunities. I was the first event planner that did Amazon press previews. They work with a PR agency. The PR agency invited us to support them. Before that, the PR team on Amazon used to do the product display, and they struggled because that's not their role. So we came up with a concept, we came up with lookbooks, we came up with a format for the event. And I'm still doing their press preview, summer preview, holiday preview, and the event grew into a multi-day event, and it's become very successful. And within times, also adding digital elements and shareable moments. We were evolving with them as they grow.
So go dig a little deeper in that too, in terms of what is it that you did that in that product display that made it so we can't do this ourselves. We have to have you guys do it.
Right. So first I looked at a room. It was an open loft, and I saw how I'm going to divide it, and how am I going to divide the categories so it will be easy for the press. Back then it was press. There was no social media influencer. It was just solely press. And so the editors came in. I divided the product in a certain way and displayed it in such an appealing way, created a theme and carried that theme through and created a path. So when the guests come in, there's a signing process. They get their bag and their catalog, and they walk through, and everything is very clear. So they can take notes, they can touch the product. It's activated, and the batteries are working. So everything can be experienced. So, talking about experiential, that was experiential, and that was 15 years ago.
What did you do? Was it lighting in that? What did it make? What you took each one and made each one a hero of some sort, right? How did that come about?
So you bring the product to life. If it's lifestyle elements, so for example, if it's just a simple bowl, fruit bowl, you put fruit in there. You maybe slice a few of them next to it on a cutting board. The lighting, definitely the backdrop of it. What is the message in the backdrop? And then how it all ties together to a holistic experience. So they come in through a path and they go out through a path, and the PR team has an opportunity to escort them, answer their questions, but then also close it to make sure that there's a follow-up.
Is there a Shai rule on this? It sounds like there is like an approach for product placement.
My team is working on a preview right now, and I always tell them, design, step away, take a look back. How do you make this better? Step away, show your colleagues. How do you make this better? And just like always, I was raised on trying to reach excellence, and I demand that from my employees, and they know I'm a little pushy, but I know that they are able to make it happen.
What makes it better? Like when you look at something, what do you see? What's your eye say to you when you see it and make it little minor change that means everything?
If it's okay,
to get paint a picture of your eye.
Sure. Evolution. When you look at some imagery or graphics and it takes you back 10 years, you know that you're wrong. If it takes you a year or two ahead, we're onto something. Even if it's current and exciting, energetic, we're onto something. Anything else is unacceptable. It just needs to be evolving, dynamic, constantly growing.
And sometimes the clients, their identity can push you forward. Tell us about the Wired Business Conference that you worked on and how that came into play.
What a fun activation. My client has been my client for many years in a different brand. She moved to Visa and started pushing the envelope. And Visa, as a conservative company, was a little bit hesitant, but they allowed her to do it. And how great. The Wired BizCon took place at Spring Studios last June, and they were a sponsor. And so we created this futuristic environment. The idea was to show Visa at the forefront of technology and really engage with the consumers. It was 350 C-level executives. They came into this environment. The team of brand ambassadors were doing performance art. They were dressed in white wigs. They had blue contacts, white robes. So everything was a little bit on the sterile side. They went into an imprint station. What was an imprint station? They got a temporary tattoo that had a chip in it. And with that chip, information streamed into our system. So we had their address in advance, their name and address in advance. And with that, they could go into a holistic experience. They can do commerce, and they can participate in happy hour. The holistic experience was a pod. You laid in this relaxed bed, and you had a relaxation VR experience, and then you had sound therapy and scent therapy, and it was a faux body scan. It wasn't real. It was performance art, but it gave you the feeling that you're going through a healing process. And then to the commerce, there were 5 columns that each one had a product. There were brand ambassadors in costumes and role. You can scan your imprint, and then that product would be mailed directly to your home. So you didn't have any contact with it. And then later on, happy hour, the bars look like ATM machines, about ATM machines in 20 years, maybe. White, digitized. The cocktails that you received were in capsule form. So they explode, the cocktail exploded in your mouth. It was just like this new creation that we did. And it was great. That event went viral and only 350 participants, obviously with the help of Wired and the Condé Nast machine, but it was a very successful and I think advanced event.
What was the adoption for the tattoos? Like, were people a little nervous about it? How did you get them to ease into it so that they participated fully?
The brand ambassadors that greeted them explained to them the process, and they knew that it's nothing that they should be, hesitant about. Also, the group that was there was very advanced in technology. They came to the Wired BizCon, so they wanted to participate.
We've been talking to a lot of strategists who talk about how the new thing is experienced by few, seen by many. And it sounds like that is kind of one of the perfect examples of
Definitely.
that. And it sort of gets me to the point that you just changed the name of your company. Mm-hmm. And so you're seeing that evolution happening, right? Tell us the story on that, why you changed your name.
So because I didn't plan this as my career path, everything evolved organically. So in the beginning, when I incorporated, I was 25 years old. I called it Shiraz NYC, Shiraz NYC Inc. I didn't even think of other cities. I didn't even know where it's going. And so later on, when there were other cities, when we grew into Miami and LA, it became Shiraz Events. And recently, last year, we added a digital department with sponsorships and partnerships. And so now clients come to us for a bigger role. We're not just a catering company. We're not just a design and production. We look at the bigger picture, and we create campaigns, and we have digital solutions, and we have sponsorships. So we are a creative agency, and I want to make sure that people know that that's what we do, that's what we provide, that's what we're able to do. And if you look at our website, shirazcreative.global, I wanted to make sure we do global work. And I would, if I can say so myself, really high level global work.
This is an interesting point, that talking about your work globally, and we'd love to dig into what those experiences are like. So how does that work? How do you get started? You are dealing with multiple cultures. You are dealing with different regulations and expectations. How does that work?
So I'll give an example. When we were preparing for FIFA World Cup, our client invited us for a 3-4 hours session of cultural studies, like about our destination and what's the best way to work with these people, and how would we achieve more by communicating this way or that way.
Like a business boot camp?
Yes, in a way. And also, when we're going to dinners and entertaining clients or vendors, to know how to behave and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Like if, for example, the vodka, Russian vodka, if you don't put if you finish your glass, they would fill it up. And if they fill it up, you have to drink it. I have to work tomorrow. So can't happen. Just things like that. And as we...
Okay, wait. So what do you do when you're done?
Well, I never finish. Yeah. I just never finish. I sip on it and I never finish.
Okay.
So, we really, when we go there, it's back-to-back meetings, and it's a great place to go, actually. But it's back-to-back meetings. So I never finished even my first one.
Pro tip right there.
Yes, but even since then, since working there locally with vendors, we learned that there's a different system. You have to be very much aware of how the system works. Their banks need to approve, production even before even before the process, they need to send them documents about the project, and their banks have to approve it even before they receive any funds. So
what about the aesthetic there? Is it are they looking for higher level stuff? Is it higher level, or are they bringing people in to make it higher level?
Well, what we're doing is very high level. It's very modern, beyond current, and that's what we were hired for this, and that's what we expect our vendors to provide us with. So Russia itself, Moscow itself, is not what you would expect.
Give us what do you mean by that?
There's glass towers, there's technology that is amazing. I mean, their VR and AR. The first visit that I was there was a Lexus exhibition, and they took this floor through unit, and they did this beautiful interactive experiential exhibit, and that was from A to Z, every step was thought of, and it was beautiful. It was great.
So if that same event were in New York or Los Angeles or Miami, how would it be different?
From my standpoint, or from that Lexus?
From your standpoint.
That's a good question. I believe that in Europe, people take more risks in activation, in experiential. Yes. I mean, we broke a Guinness World Record in tossing pizza for Papa John in Bridge Tower Park. And that was 3 years ago. We did all these activations for Hilton, for example, and King's Cross Station, and it was so ahead of the game compared to what's happening here. Their technology their gaming technology, what I did last year there, I've never seen here.
Like what? Like what?
I mean, we went to this company that develops the augmented reality technology, and the system that they have is basically you carry. Right now, it's probably even evolved in that. That was a year ago. But you have a backpack, and you have different places where that system is on you. So it really, every motion that you take is shown in the system. So, and you don't get dizzy, which that was an issue beforehand. So, but the level of graphics that I've seen, I was so scared to step on those elements that had acid before, because underneath them, because
it
really felt real. I mean, I was supposed to jump from a building, and I couldn't do it. I was sweating because it was so realistic. So that's fun. That's great.
You talk about activations, you talk about events. Where are we in that? Is it all about the experience, or is it all about when you do an event versus an activation? What is the difference in terms of how you approach it?
Well, it all depends on the client's objective. I always have to satisfy our client. But
what's the objective that most people have other than selling something?
They want shareability.
Shareability
that's a big name. That's a big word. Yeah, definitely. Everyone wants shareability, and they measure it by numbers and impressions, and press impression and social media impressions. Sales are less connected to that, but at the end of the day, the numbers speak for themselves. Yes, I think shareability is a big thing. However, I always try to balance, and depends who the client is, obviously. I always try to balance the social element into it, because I come from hospitality, and I personally don't want to go to an event where everyone has their phone out and recording the whole time. I want to engage. Recently, I went to a gala, an art gala, and my impression coming out of it, I enjoyed it so much because the conversations and the people that I met were so impactful, were so great. So no one had their phone out. We engaged face to face, like we used to do 10 or 15 years ago.
Amazing. And talking to each other. Wow.
Yes, and that was great. And I wish.
Do you then have to sort of counsel your brands that it's not all about the Excel spreadsheet of how many shareability things there are, but it's all about the experience?
Sometimes, yes. Sometimes, yes. I think some of them have great understanding of it. They know that it's not just about that. the client that I work with for Russia is very well aware, because a big portion of it is hospitality. But some clients just want shareability, and that's the key word.
In that conversation, how does it go? How do you present those moments? Do they ask you specifically what is going to be the viral moment of this event? Or do you say, here's what we expect people to take pictures of, or here's specifically where we're going to have this vignette? How do you present that to them or have that conversation?
Sure. I always like to lead with questions to really have them think about what do they really want to achieve with this. In my presentation, in my proposal, I obviously, based on what their reaction is, I base that and I show them each element. There's always some elements that are more shareable or more intriguing than others in order to balance it. So, and it's very visual. We have a team of graphic designers, so they create 2D or 3D presentations, or sometimes just mood boards to tell a story. And that's the flow of the event. I always like to tell the story from the invitation and to how the guest leaves the event and what's the impression that they go out with. And so
what is the impression that you want them to have? Like, what's the feeling?
Well, I want them to feel great. I want them to feel like they were engaged. I want them to feel like their time was worth, it was spent well. And I want them to come back. And I think that's what my clients, and obviously if shareability is the objective, I want them to share. I want them to think, this was so great, I had to take a picture of myself. People need to see me in front of this or see what I experienced in this because it was so great. But I hope that they also connect, if it's with the PR team or the marketing team of the brand or with their peers.
Invest in yourself and your staff with self-paced online event education designed to fit into your busy schedule. Subscribe to the Event Leadership Institute for only $25 per month and gain access to an extensive on-demand video library of classes, as well as interviews with industry leaders. Best of all, you can watch classes in small pieces or all at once. For more information, visit eventleadershipinstitute.com.
So when you talk about the shareability piece, do you now focus on that one major element rather than everything in the room? Is there a rule that you have on that?
It depends. Like, for example, if I'm thinking about that press preview, there's a path in there. There's different groupings. So then it's not just about one. However, for example, I did the Jesse Owens Award last year for Hennessy, and that was in Jazz at Lincoln Center. So we work with a company that has a cinematic experience. Cinematic experience is what we've been developing post photo booth. It's that element that is not just a picture or a GIF or a mobile. It's that little content that looks like an ad that you can get a minute after on your phone and you can share or not, and it's fully branded. And that was maybe the most shareable moment. And Spike Lee, for example, was in attendance, and he went there 3 times. He loved it. I have it on my Facebook profile as my picture because I really love it.
So what's it called?
We call it the cinematic experience. And the idea behind it is we work with a team. They have developers in Sweden. They have an algorithm that manages the editing of the content. And so ahead of time, we know what this would look like. And all we need to do is create the set. And again, after a minute and a half, 2 minutes, they receive it in their email and they can share it. Oh. And I can show you that later.
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
From catering to algorithms, this is how far we've traveled here. I
had to do my homework, which I tell all my employees or people that want to work for me, do your homework.
Okay, this is one of your rules, evidently.
Definitely.
But what does homework mean?
You have to know
curiosity.
You have to know the market.
Like read BizBash all the time.
Yes. Who are the players? Who are the vendors? What are brands doing? Not just in the US, in Europe, in Australia, in Asia. What are they doing? What's innovative? What is innovation in art right now, in design? I want to be inspired. And if I'm the only one doing the inspiration, then we're not, this is wrong.
But what do you see? What do you see? What is like really in the last couple of months have made you sort of see a different way of doing things?
Sure. So our teams have an Instagram chat where we send each other things that we see and inspire. So I get things from art, from design, from architecture. They're all very different. Some of them are dynamic and electronic. Some digital, projection, holograms. Yeah, anything and everything. And even from something very simple, you get inspiration. I remember when I did the LA Philharmonic Gala for the first time, the first portion took place in the Disney building. And it's such a beautiful building, you don't want to touch it. I had to work with a projection artist that was already involved. What do I do in this beautiful space that is going to be packed with people and no one is going to see anything? And someone showed me a picture of a floral arrangement from Japan. And I said, well, imagine this was 18 feet tall and towered above all these people. And when you walked in, that's what you see. So from that little picture, an 18-foot arrangement with white
so scale is still
definitely
a major sort of component.
And we had digital. I mean, we had the projection and photo ops and all that. So, yes.
Do you still think that large scale physical things still are even better than the digital things when you project it, or does it matter?
Are you talking about
like what you're talking about, a huge physical thing, as opposed to the mapping? I mean, is there one or the other that's better, or it's just different?
I don't think there's one or the other that is different. Depends what the impact that you want to create. If you want it to be seen from distances and for people to come if that's the draw, yes, something that is oversized is definitely can have a big impact. But these days, I mean, if you want to post on Instagram, you won't be able to fit the whole thing.
Right.
And that's most brands wants to show that, so it has to fit in that vertical.
That's a good point.
Yes, in that vertical screen of yours.
Mm-hmm. So thinking about industry trends as a whole, where are we as an industry? Are budgets healthy? Are brands seeing the value in events and wanting to do them as opposed to just having digital campaigns? Where do you see things standing?
It's hard to generalize that. I think in some industries, there are events that will always happen because that is the kind of event. Sales conferences, those are the kind of events that will always happen. Store launches for now are going to happen. In the future, I don't know. So there's a balance, there's a shift in balance, and I don't know that we got there. Or I don't think you ever get there. Things are dynamic. That's our world. So it's hard to generalize that. Some industries have great budgets and some don't. Some keep it for like a very special occasion. And then they have a nice budget and they want to make sure that they do it right. And some industries have consistent budgets. And, they might have a requirement of reducing here and there, but basically it's the same. And even if they say that in the beginning, later on, you get to the same number. So...
And in terms of where the money is going for an event, is the allocation different? Like, is your technology budget, as you're describing all these amazing things, does it dwarf what you spend on decor? Does it dwarf what you spend on food or other things? Where's the priority?
There's definitely a priority on digital. If it's influencer management, the whole portion of influencer content management, content creation, content management, there's definitely a bigger budget that is allocated for that at events versus, just decor. It depends what it is. If it's a social fundraising event, those elements, you can't transfer those elements. But when it's marketing events, I can say that the digital portion of things is getting higher budgets than before.
One of the things you started out in is the catering side.
Right.
And we're seeing that catering is now marketing. Because the food is no longer just food, it's a touch point. Are you seeing that in terms of when you design that you're equally thinking about the F&B as opposed to part of the decor and the strategy?
It's always been a part of the marketing in some way. For example, when we used to do a lot of fragrance launches, the essences of the fragrance went into the food or the cocktails and the coloration and the branding. I always kept my company. I always said to my team, I want to look at pictures from 20 years ago and have it like an Armani suit, like a Calvin Klein suit, timeless. And I'm not one to do gimmicky. I can be playful, but I don't want to do gimmicky, because if I look at a popcorn stand from 10 years from now, I might say, how tacky is that? And what was I thinking? I don't want to be. I want to be in a position where I look at events I did 10 years ago, and I do, and they still look current. They still make sense. And that's a timeless that I want to be.
How do you what is gimmicky today versus what is timeless? Is it?
I think it's that feeling in your gut that tells you
and then what stretches the imagination,
right?
It's hard. It is
hard, but the question, does your client know, and can you advise them how to balance that? Like, for example, we were a part of a 3-day event in Miami. It was a luxury event, and one of the nights was produced by a different company. And when I walked in, the first thing that I said, I asked my team, were we a part of this? And she said, no, we were just doing the upper portion. Because if we were, I would be a little mad because, it just wasn't, the characters that they brought in, it doesn't coincide with the brand. And it coincides with what people would say, oh, so Miami. I don't want them to say that. This is a different kind of event. I want them to feel like they're part of this great luxury family and an exciting 3-day event that they want to be a part of and represent the whole 3 days.
That's a very interesting point, because our editorial team looks at event photos every day, and there is definitely a Miami look, as you're saying. We have said that's very Miami, looking at something, and sometimes that is not a compliment. Right. Sometimes it's nice that there can be regional differences and that there is a culture that you're feeling is coming through. So that's kind of a push-pull there. I think sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes that's definitely not.
I agree. I mean, that sense of Miami white, Delano, it's not the Miami that I know or Miami that I see. That's like, it's like a client coming in and wants an Havana Nights theme. You know how many times I've heard that in the past 3 years? Yeah. But who really does Havana Nights in Miami? No one does it.
Right.
So that's not really Miami. Miami right now has grown. And I'm talking about Miami, but my offices in LA and London, it's sort of all the same. What we go for is an event should be fun. And an event should have a great flow. An event should have great food and beverage. As far as the look should just correlate to what the client messaging is. The market, there's a few touches that you can add to that, but the market is the market. It's similar crowds that moving from one to the other, depending. And Yeah, it's the same elements. And that's what allows us to do events in Russia or in South Korea or in Sydney or, you know.
So is it like, is the language of events similar to the language of music? I mean, is it kind of like that we're not that different no matter where we are?
Well, there's a tempo.
Uh-huh.
So definitely if you listen to the tempo, I would say if you produce an event here, well, you can do that anywhere. You just have to do your homework beforehand and really prepare and vet who you're working with to make sure that the level is great and you follow the lead of what this market. But yes, I think.
But you've raised the bar. Like luxury is luxury everywhere, right? Or is luxury different everywhere?
It's not different. I think that luxury, you know, the whole idea of the old luxury was belonging to this small group of people that can afford it. It's sort of like a private club, this kind of like intrigue of, you know, and how can I belong to this? And I think that's a balance that they need to figure out. They figure out right now. I don't think most companies haven't figured it out yet.
What do you mean? Where do you see it going, or where should it be going, as opposed to this insular private club feeling? So, and how can an event help change that?
So luxury. So you can look at it at two groups that they need to appeal to. The one group is the older group, the group that are affluent and have the money to purchase and still think in the old ways that it is a private and exclusive group. And so the level of service, the experience that they receive, you know, being flown to a different market and have a 3-day event and have showroom meetings while they're at that 3-day event and purchasing and that is the engagement to the brand, to the luxury brand. And then you have the younger crowd. So how do you appeal to them? It's either the daughters of those women that buy the Harry Winston, and you want to shift them into that notion. They want to be like mother. They want to look great with that, you know, necklace when they go to the ball or something like that. So but what other elements can you do in order to engage them? And because they are on Instagram, but they want to travel, they want to see the world.
So
they want to have
generational differences are not that different ultimately, are you saying?
No, I think they are different. But there's some elements that you can utilize from one generation to the other generation. There's different ways of reaching them.
Right. But ultimately the same end result.
Yes.
Wanting to look great or feel great or experience something or talk to someone really interesting. Right.
The mothers might not take pictures on that event or at least post them on Instagram. The girls will.
Yeah. No matter what.
And so you need to provide them that, but it's still that generation that in 5-10 years will be your consumer. So
right. One question I like to ask at kind of at the end is, okay, we talked earlier about you started 18, 19 years ago. What does your 19 years ago person, what lessons did they learn? Like how much smarter? What is the wisdom? What is the wisdom that you can talk about from your experience then and now? Sure.
I was a kid, so everything was a little scary and new. I know now as an adult that everything always works out. Even if it doesn't seem at that moment, everything always works out. There's always a solution. And if you keep your calm and quiet, you know, and people around you, you know, are a great support system, and you should rely on your support system. You should never rest. You should always be dynamic and learning and evolving, because everyone else is doing that. And you do need to keep up. However, some fortunate people with some kind of a connection get inspired and have that creativity that no matter what it is, they just need to go for a walk in the park and they'll come up with that idea of, throwing a soccer ball in from the moon to Earth to get a prize, or flying above scenery of gorgeous places in Russia in a simulator, or those are things that I don't need to see it somewhere else. I can just that's the experiences that I want my client to have.
In some ways, your origin story is almost magical, like having a 23-year-old show up at Iman and David Bowie's apartment to do a party. Could that happen today? Like, what's the barrier to entry in events in New York or LA or wherever? Could that happen today? Definitely.
I mean, I'm also very spiritual, so I believe in manifestation. Not that I manifested that. I can't acknowledge that I manifested. I never dreamed in my life. Maybe when I was listening to David Bowie's music, I don't know. But yes, determination, focus, hard work. Not hard work. I wouldn't call it hard work. I would call it dedicated work, because I believe in work-life balance. I think that's very important. When you're happy, you attract happy things. And so, yes, I definitely...
Well, we are in the happiness business, ultimately. The worst is when the people that are miserable are planning these events.
Exactly. So, and we have to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
It's only at the end of the event, at the end of the day, it's an event that we're planning.
Yeah.
And that's another rule that I have. We were talking about rules before. I make sure that to screen our clients, I want to make sure that the clients that come to us appreciate, and they are kind and gracious, because my team works on many events, and I want to make sure that they're treated well and spoken to and with respect. So that's a rule.
Great. Well, that sounds like a good place to end. Unless, Beth, if you have any other
before
questions?
We do that, make sure you tell everyone listening how they can reach you, either on social or your website again.
Sure. I'm on social, Instagram, I'm Shai Shiraz. My email is Shai, SHAI, @shirazcreative.global. I answer emails to everyone. So, yes.
Well, this has been great. It's been inspiring to hear you.
Thank you very much for having me.
David, we have a number of people listening now who operate their own events business or are working for someone else, but have that entrepreneurial bug and want to start their own company. What do you think they can learn from Shai?
I think he's persistent. He's been around a long time, and he started from something that was pretty practical, catering and staffing, and was able to evolve. I mean, he's got his own rules about how he does things, and if you talk about service, ultimately, starting out in staffing is actually a good place to start. But then he has this creative eye that people have respected, and he's grown over the last few years.
Mm-hmm. Shai said there's more freedom to do boundary pushing events overseas. Were you surprised to hear that? And what I'm wondering is, what needs to change here?
Yes, I think that there's that 4-letter word called drayage and things like that is very union oriented, which happens here that doesn't happen overseas, in Europe especially. But I think that the canvas is just bigger there, I guess. I don't know. I honestly don't have a good answer to that, because I think innovation happens everywhere. But somehow when you go to another city, you're so inspired by what you see that's fresh and new, as opposed to a place that you're at all the time. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, and I hope that anyone listening out there takes that as a challenge. There is a lot of innovation here. We cover it in BizBash, but there's always going to be change, and people need to be thinking about what's ahead, and maybe not be followers in that respect, but leaders, the ones pushing the envelope, so that when we revisit this conversation in a couple years, we can say, no, you can push those boundaries here in the States
and
too.
Be inspired by the little things, culture, by reading, by plays, by food, by cuisine, just by talking to somebody. and not sort of be have boundaries around your creativity.
Yeah, and discussing that with your team, I really liked Shai's example of the team Instagram chat, sharing ideas and inspiration. It's so vital for all creative people, and there are really more tools for that than ever. From your Pinterest board to on BizBash.com, you can create your own idea books, kind of scratch pads along those lines. Maybe it's a Slack channel, but find ways to harness and corral that inspiration, which will lead to your next great event.
And actually do it. Actually, take the time every week to get inspired, and don't use it up in a sense. Don't think you're done. You're never done.
No, you're never done. There will always be a new event, and then we'll need new ideas.
Absolutely. So Beth, what's going on at BizBash?
I wanted to say there's one last chance for you to sign up for BizBash Live Florida. It's this week. It's Wednesday, May 16th at the Fort Lauderdale Convention Center. It is not too late to sign up, or, you can always register on site the day of the event. We have some spots left in our education sessions, as well as passes to our exhibit hall floor. Those are still available. So join us. And if you can't, mark your calendars for our other BizBash Live events. We will be in Los Angeles on July 18th and here in New York on October 24th. Find all you need to know about those events at bizbash.com/events.
And don't forget to look at bizbash.com every day, because it's like a trade show or an educational service every single day about the event industry. That's what we love about what we do.
Absolutely. So
Great.
David, gather on.
Gather on.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. We can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Player FM, Google Play, and Pocket Cast. Be sure to leave us a rating and review. It helps others discover the GatherGeeks podcast. We'd also love to hear from you. You can leave feedback on Twitter at GatherGeeks or leave us an email, gathergeeks@bizbash.com. We hope you'll join us again for the next episode of GatherGeeks. Until then, gather on. If you are looking for a state-of-the-art learning management system, take a look at Digitel's newest platform, Opus DX. Opus DX offers the robust platform for event organizers and associations to manage content. To learn more and schedule a demo, email them at contactus@digitelinc.com. That's contact us at digitellinc.com.